Welcome to the New South Wales Government's Business Connect webcasts on business disruption. My name is Steve Waite, a Business Connect advisor and CEO of the Business Centre. Business Connect is a dedicated program funded by the New South Wales Government and delivered through a network of independent service providers to help you start or grow your small business. Today's webcast, titled 5 Things Hoteliers Must Remember During COVID-19, whether your hotel is closed or remains open, will give you some insights on things you need to do to consider and give some strategies and tools how to deal with the current crisis. Now, we're going to look at about 5 areas today, and we're going to do that with our guest. The first thing we'll look at is the importance of communication, authorities and understanding regulations given the changing nature and fluid nature of the pandemic. We'll also look at planning and sustaining a supply or key supplies and materials so you can operate your facility effectively. We'll look at the area of visitor and guest screening and safe business operations. And then towards the end of our conversation with our guest, we're going to look at business continuity plans and profit protection plans and talk a little bit about the way that the market is operating and costs, fixed costs, labour costs, etc. Now, all of those areas will highlight for us how we can look at the tourism sector and look at how we can respond and avoid damage and get the most positive results despite the disruption. And the person we've got here to help us with that is Will Creedon. Will's got over 25 years of experience in hospitality and tourism. He successfully operated multiple styles of vacation and leisure businesses and currently operates a number of hotels and accommodation enterprises. Will is going to give some practical insights and some personal insights about how he has had to change his business operations to both survive and adapt through the impact of this pandemic. Will is the Managing Director of Allogio, a well-respected property management expert entrusted with letting properties and boutique hotels throughout New South Wales and Queensland. Allogio, of course, meaning accommodation in Italian. Will's got successful operation at multiple styles, however, of tourism and leisure businesses. He was born and bred in Ireland. Will settled in Australia almost 20 years ago, and with the Roche family, developed the popular Harrigan's Irish pub chain, assisting in establishment and as General Manager of Hunter Valley Gardens, which many people would know, incorporating the Southern Hemisphere's largest commercial attraction garden, as well as numerous associated hospitality businesses. In December 2008, Will ventured to Newcastle to operate a well-known hotel and has since grown and managed a number of successful restaurants, cafes, bars, accommodation offerings, as well as establishing numerous community events. Will has regional and international tourism and destination expertise and has been an industry advocate for the growth of tourism industry in Australia, New South Wales through events, infrastructure, experiencing activities and also all levels of government. Will, it's wonderful to have you with us again.
Thank you.
As always, we begin our webcasts with a question about, where are you at? How's this been for you as a business owner personally, given the ups and downs of this thing, and where are we now? How's it been for you?
Oh, look, it's been a moving feast for our business, but more importantly for the team within the business. Way back in late January when the border shut to China and into Korea in February, and then of course March 23 when there was lockdown. The effects that it had on the individual within that make up our team were varied. Some people took it really well and camouflaged their mental health. Some people exposed that anxiety. Some people it absolutely they developed passion and energy. And through the last number of months it's varied. And as a team, no different to our communities, there's been ups and downs. We've had to deal with isolation and deal with and they've had to deal with neighbours that some cases saw ghosts and some cases saw reality. And along the way, they've had their own families to deal with. And so it's been very difficult. Yeah. But also, it's been quite inspiring.
Yes,
individuals, God bless them, coming together and joining together and forging a way forward.
Yeah.
And for me, it's been looking through that, watching it and witnessing it every day. And I understand my place in that is to ensure that they're safe and to bring a level of calmness to them and to their families so that we're here for the long term. And I know all business owners and all leaders in community have to do the same, regardless what they're leading. Being calm, understanding what is actually the evidence versus the unrealities.
You can't disconnect from it, can you?
No, you can't.
No,
you know,
there's no
and
switching it
we're
off.
human at the end of the day. We all make mistakes, and we get a few things right too.
Yeah. Well, we've had a couple of conversations in preparation for this, and I thank you for that time and consideration. And I think you've probably brought a lot of that personal insight as well as your professional industry experience to what we're going to talk about today. So we've got sort of 5 areas to look at, and the first one we thought we'd try and tackle is this area of businesses, hoteliers, people in the accommodation services industry, hospitality industry. One of the most important aspects, particularly for this industry, as we've found, is this communication with authorities and interacting with authorities around regulation. There are many instances that we've all experienced already with regard to specific facilities or locations, with issues around how many people can legally be on the site, demarcation of the site in terms of the 4 metre rule, the 1.5 metre rule, and then even permits and regulations and breaches and fines. What's your thoughts about this whole regulation? How are you dealing with it? And we'll look at some of the specifics.
Yeah, look, I suppose, it's there for us on protection.
Yep.
And yes, it might be troublesome, and yes, it might be seen as a barrier, but ultimately it's there to ensure that we're safe. Now, but it's our responsibility as individuals and as owners to ensure it's enforced. So, like anything, you have to go to the true source.
Yeah.
And in New South Wales, the true source of that is Service New South Wales.
Yeah.
Like myself and my ExCom team are on that site every day, I think including the ATO.
Yeah.
And if we're not unsure of something, we don't go down the road and ask the neighbour.
Yeah.
We actually call Service New South Wales to articulate it to us.
Yeah.
So now that is very important because certain geographies may have different regulations depending on where they are in light of the coronavirus.
Yeah.
You know, there's outbreaks at different stages, and some places may go into a further sort of hibernation than others, and we need to be aware of that.
Yeah.
You know, and also it means that there's some natural things that are happening right now. For example, in the South Coast, the floods that actually has changed how we have as a business to deal with those regulations because of a natural disaster as well.
Yes. Yes.
So the most important thing is getting the sense of truth, the actual truth, and there is only one body. Go back to Service New South Wales.
And when we spoke about that today, I was sharing with you how specific the newsouthwales.gov.au site is with regard to specific facilities, the times at which there are exposures, and the sites at which people can then go and get a COVID-19 test. So you need to have your ear to the ground, and I'm sure it's so true for your industry. And so you need to listen, not gossip or scuttlebutt, but you need to be aware of actual threat. But at the same time, you need to be clear about what the facts are, and that's so important for organisations like yours.
Like all we have, that's our base, that's our starting point.
Yeah.
And you know, as time goes on, the authorities and us are learning and we're adapting and subtly changing and nuancing different things for different sectors within our sector.
Yeah.
So it's important to understand this is a living, breathing, changing environment.
We're going to go into some specifics around supplies and supply chains and key supplies to operate, but I want to go a little bit further into this. And an example we spoke about, which might be useful to unpack for people to hear, is what does happen when a facility is shut down from your insights and experience. Not that you've had one in your group, but you'd be working very closely with colleagues. So what happens when my pub or my cafe or my hotel is shut down? What actually occurs? Who is the agency that does that? What are the costs? Who bears the cost? What happens? Deep cleaning? What goes on?
Yeah, look, so firstly, the most important thing, is you have a COVID plan.
Yes.
And the COVID plan, and I'm going to get to all of that now in a second, but the COVID plan is a framework, not just because it's a plan, but it actually gets you in a frame of mind to think about what could happen and actually start thinking about, hang on a second, if it does happen, what do I need on my mobile phone to call in case it does happen? Yeah. Now, so to go through it, if something is to happen, and please God, it won't, but the likelihood, to be honest, is you're going to be in an area over the next 150 weeks that there is going to be an outbreak. So that's the reality.
Yeah.
The next thing, okay, that COVID plan is unbelievably important. Why? One, it shows to the authorities and to yourself, to your staff and to your customers that you've been doing things right. It also highlights to you what you should have been looking for. The next part is, you know, there's a reason why when you walk into a facility, be it a restaurant, a cafe, an office or whatever, they take your name. Now, yes, you can write it down. It's better to do a QR code or electronically. Why is it better? Because under the legislation or regulation, you've got 24 hours to turn that written piece of paper into a digital piece of paper.
Yeah.
Why is that important? So that when the traces come, they can actually go very quickly and help protect your community, your customers and your staff members. Now, obviously there's fines if you don't have that in place.
Yes.
The next part is, if the health authorities or authorities find that there is being a COVID plus positive in your location, then there'll be immediate shutdown. The health authorities will do that immediately. What will happen next is you should have preempted that and said, well, what cleaners in my area actually have the skills, are accredited to actually do that deep clean?
Right.
Because the costs lie with you, the owner.
Right.
It's important.
Yeah.
Now, you will not be open unless you do the deep clean. Now, the other thing is, there's the 99% chance that the reason that person was there has got nothing to do with your facility. They just happen to be passing through.
Yeah.
And you just happen to be unlucky. It's not because you didn't do anything wrong.
No.
So mentally and psychologically, you need to reassure yourself and your team and your customers. The other part is, like I said, the chances are in your location, you're going to have a positive. It means that you need to have a statement ready. You need to have a plan ready for your staff.
Yeah.
You need to have a statement ready for your customers and for your suppliers.
Yes.
They need to know that you're on top of
Your
it.
landlord, insurers,
Absolutely.
everyone.
Absolutely. Everybody needs to be known. Because there could be a chance that you're out of business for a week, a fortnight, or longer. Now, you need to also ask your insurance company, if you have gross profit insurance, are you eligible? And if you're not, do that now. Don't wait till it happens.
Yeah.
Find out and make adjustments if you need to.
Yeah.
All of these things are really, really important, you know?
Yeah.
The biggest thing, though, genuinely, away from all of this, is the psychological effect it'll have on your team and your customers. You have to figure out and nurture them back into your business.
Yeah.
Because it will have a big effect.
Now, just a curious thing that you and I spoke about beforehand, and I know that the Premier has spoken strongly about masks and the wearing of masks, and there's a much more prevalence in the community around that. But we were talking about, if you do go through your COVID plan and as a team you make an agreement that you are wearing masks, then it's an interesting thing, isn't it, when you look at, say, one facility, a cafe here versus a cafe there versus a butcher here, where some are wearing masks, not are wearing masks. Until it's legislated or regulated, there's also a signal you're giving about your business and what type of business you are, isn't it?
Absolutely. Look, you know, like everything, you have to look at things through numerous lenses, you know. There's the lens of your team. You need to protect them as best you can. Now, even though it's not legislated to wear a mask, maybe you should. You also need to look at it from your guest and your customer. Well, what is their perception of you? So there's the actual reality that you don't actually need to wear a mask from a legislation point of view. But from a perception reality, well, hang on a second. The average customer might think that's a safer environment here than over there. So is that good business practice? Well, you know, at the end of the day, you're here about driving revenue and being sustainable. This is one of the ways of being sustainable. And also setting yourself out from your competition.
Yes, exactly. So it's more than just that. Before we move on to the next question, which is more looking at the supply side of things and sanitisers, gloves, cleaning rooms, etc., what's your experience from the people in your industry that you work in and your own experience with regards to some of these quite specific regulations around, say, you know, maximum of 10 people booking a table, 10 people entering a venue at the same time, 300 people maximum at a venue, 4 square metre rule, 1.5. Events have different. How's the industry dealing with this? this phenomena of...
To be honest, they want to deal with it in a positive way,
Yeah.
but it's difficult.
Yes.
Because the subsectors, even within our visitor economy and tourism industry, there's many different subsectors that have many different nuanced regulations for them. So the first thing, like at the first question, you need to go to Service New South Wales to actually get the facts.
Yeah.
And then you need to try and you do your best to apply them continuously. Continuously. Like within our business, we have a set days that no matter where we are in the country, we know right that moment that the COVID plan is in action and our further nuanced plans are in action.
Yeah.
Because why is that important? Because nearly every second day, there's a regulation change.
Yes.
We need to be up to date with it.
Yes.
What happened last week is different to this week.
Yeah.
So it's important that we're doing it. And it's important for your subsector, your particular business, that you're up to speed. It's no one else's responsibility, it's yours. It's important that you take that on. The other thing, believe it or not, from a psychological point of view, you're aiming at something. You've got actually a framework. So from yourself, you know that you're doing something positive, not negative, it's actually positive. So you can actually work towards something. Now, it also means that you need to look at it from a regulation point of view, but you also need to look at it from a commercial point of view.
Yes.
How do you generate a sustainable business?
How do you resolve that?
Exactly. And you need to think differently. You know, with respect, God bless us humans, I think we talked about this before, we're creatures that will adapt and overcome. We just need to allow ourselves to get into that frame of mind.
Yes.
And in some ways, the COVID plan and the framework allows us to do that because they're giving us a framework and we have to try and work within it and be entrepreneurial. So this is actually a great opportunity to be positive.
It is, isn't it? It's a funny tension that we have between a crisis and an opportunity. We've got some questions coming through, Will, so I'll indulge you some of your time if I could on those. Bree asks, how do I keep my team engaged during these times? They are young and seem to be seeing COVID as an invitation for time off. A curiosity about this labour market, this demographic in hospitality.
Oh my God, yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Short-lived.
Short-lived?
Yeah. Yes, it might be for the moment, but like in the fullness of time, over weeks, you know, that curiosity will change. They might be too curious and put the state into lockdown. None of us want that.
No.
So it's, you know, at the end of the day, we need to articulate that this period is going to come to an end, and what will you have at the end of it?
Yes.
And how will you be set up to into your next stage in life, next journey, next adventure? Well, will you have an opportunity or you won't? Because, you know, we all know, God bless us all, we all have memories. And those that help each other during this period will help each other after.
Yes.
Those that don't help each other now will be remembered later.
That's a good insight. We've got another one here. Sarah asks, the majority of people that come into our cafe are kind. We have had a few people who refuse to go through the QR code process. What are some tips we might have for people to get around people that won't go through the process or that react negatively and impact, you know, the overall customer experience? Okay,
so I'll answer that question in a number of different ways.
Yeah.
Number one, there is a legislation regulation. If there's someone dining in your facility,
you can call upon that. Just call on it.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, but that's the reality. The second reality is actually human behaviour. You know, in the developed world, there's been some research done on how people react to discipline and framework. And something like 11% of the population will actually go against it. So no matter what you do, you're going to hit an argument or a disagreement, and they're going to try everything under the sun to say it's not legal and blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm sorry, it is your premise. You do what you think is right for that premise to protect your team members and your customers. And if it means saying no to that revenue, say no to that revenue.
So when I've been looking at the need for venues with a plan to have a COVID safety marshal, it makes me think immediately of RSA and,
Absolutely.
and all the skills and the thinking around that, you know, approaching people, not being confrontational, quoting the regulations in regards to what you can and can't do and allowing them to move off the premises.
Absolutely. Look, you know, you think about the tools you need before it happens. So the profile of the person that will be greeting them at the door, what he or she is
Setting
like.
the tone there, aren't you?
Absolutely. And like calmness is everything, you know. But the other tool is that you actually have a printed regulations near you and laminated. So because accidents do happen, someone spills a drink or a glass of water and it goes away, but if it's laminated, it's always there. And make sure it's a process of opening and closing every day, that the document is there. So no matter who's at the door, you can say, I'm sorry, the regulations say this, in a nice, calm manner. But they also know that you know what's going on. So they're not going to fight with you. You have a better chance of winning them over, you know, honey rather than anything else. And if they continue to push, then I'm sorry. Then it's a decision that you, as the owner, have to make. Personally, for me, I'm sorry. Please move on. You know.
Okay, we'll take another question, then we'll go on to our next area of conversation. But Jen states, the time it takes to clean a room, ensuring COVID cleanliness, has increased enough to impact on our profitability. There has been a decrease in room rate as well. How are other hoteliers dealing with this? Our housekeeping teams are stressed and starting to drop off again. We spoke about this yesterday, about this whole cost frame of profitability versus cost. What are your thoughts?
Look, I totally hear you. We're going through it ourselves. The reality is, with respect, we're going to have to get used to the costs. They're here to stay for the foreseeable future. Next 2 to 3 years, and probably forever, to be honest with you. People will expect a level of cleaning that was above what we expected 6 months ago. Yes, that'll bring extra costs. Yes, costs, not just financial costs, but costs in anxiety, costs in actual productivity, generally from individuals, costs in actually of, with respect, people saying, you know what, that job is no longer for me. Now, what are we doing to anticipate that? Well, firstly, I agree with, depending where you are and depending on the type of operation you're running across New South Wales. For example, if you're caravan parks versus 5-star accommodation versus vacation homes or holiday homes, there's different costs there. But there's also different styles of individuals that take up those. Some room rates or house rates are up and down depending on your location, metro versus regional versus rural. So I'm not trying to move away from the answer, but we need to take that into context. The other thing, so what I'm actually getting at, maybe you can actually charge more if you're in a particular sector, in a particular location. If you're a metro, absolutely, your hotel room rate is tanking. And it will remain like that for a while to come. Why will it be like that? If you drill back a bit, white collar, your corporate traveller is not travelling. Why? A lot of the time, their corporations, their companies that are employing them are saying, you do not travel. So that market segment is gone. Blue collar, depending where you are in New South Wales again, is dramatically limited. Obviously, there is, from an events point of view or festivals, and that is gone, unfortunately. And you know, we need to be thinking in 50 to 75 week period there when that's going to come back and what form that's going to come back in. Of course, indirect international, forget international, but indirect international, that market is gone as well for probably the next 75 weeks. So then you need to think about your leisure. And that's interesting because it goes back to the type of accommodation you're running, the house, the apartment versus a single hotel room. Where you're located. Now, the chances are, like I said, with hotel, in metro areas rather than regional growth centres, that's taken a hit. In regional growth centres, we're finding some market around people that are leaving the urban area searching for a new home. And they're staying with us for a little while they're searching, and we're actually appealing to that market. So there's what I'm actually saying, in everything, there's always a silver lining, right? So it's how you adapt yourself to that. But it actually comes back to the question, costs, yes, they're increasing. But you can nuance how you articulate what you're selling too.
I like your reflection, it's earlier to what you said, that with regards to employees, it's a case of it won't be like this forever, and if you do want to stay in this industry, or if you still want to stay employed, then the job is going to be different.
Absolutely.
So it's how do you communicate that and factor that then into your business model.
100%. And also, you know, one of the things to arrest their anxiety, right, is, you know, through the different regional tourism or regional training organisations and TAFEs, etc., there's actually courses that are around cleaning. and toxicity and things like that.
Yes.
And actually, a lot of them are free, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But it's a small investment.
Yes.
But it's an investment in your people.
Yeah.
It's an investment in confidence and self-esteem
Yeah.
and removing anxiety and mental issues there. So
Well, that leads us nicely on to the next question, and we've got a few more questions there that we'll go to. But this one is in regard to some specificity there about how do you keep your operations safe? How do you keep everything in place so that you've got a sustainable supply for your business at this time, so that you've got the supply of materials, you've got a supply of goods that allow you to keep practicing your business safely and effectively. So ultimately, you want to demonstrate that you've got a low level of infection, if any, in your facility, and that you're protecting your brand. How are you maintaining supply? Because I know this must be such an issue for many facilities.
Look, I think you need to look at that from 3 different lenses. Lens number 1 is your internal processes. What I mean by that is, if you were to think about what is my team members and what am I doing day to day in this property, making sure that your COVID plan is functional, but making sure too your storeroom is stocked.
Yep.
And that if you're not doing the ordering personally, that the person is doing the ordering has a power level, and their immediate instruction, if that power level can't be met, that they tell you, because that means the supplier can't deliver.
Yes.
You need to know it early.
Right.
Now, you as the employer need to have 2 or 3 different avenues to deal with that and already preempt it, which gets me to the next part.
Yeah.
So the next part is actually, how do you know that supplier will make it? And when I mean make it, I mean will be in business tomorrow. Because like us, we know in our hearts and soul that some of our friends and colleagues will not make it commercially. It's just a reality. Some of them, they should, with respect for their own mental state, should give up sooner rather than later.
Yes.
Some of them should, I know, will go through it, and some just won't make it. Not their fault. Not their fault.
No.
It's just circumstances that were delivered.
Yeah.
But then there's others that will make it. And that's why when I talk about you need to have 2 or 3 ready to go so that you can pivot. So that, because the last thing you want to do is have everything ready and no stock of masks, sanitization, etc.
No.
So it comes down to that. Now, the third part is believe it or not, how we as our individuals, our staff members and our suppliers transmit level of confidence to our guest. The intangible. So when your staff member goes to get that mask from that, or the sanitation or whatever from the storeroom, he or she will see a full storeroom. So inside them, they'll go, you know what, we're fine, we're great.
We're good.
Believe it or not, they'll actually transmit that to your customer. And so that sense of confidence will be felt by the customer, and therefore the customer will be at ease. And the customer will know that Mary, John, Jimmy is protected as the staff member, but also Mary, John, Jimmy as the owner is doing everything right.
We've got some more questions, but before we go to those, I just want to ask a specific question, if you can give us a sense of it, around this supply matter. But if you do require to do a deep clean,
Yes.
Could you give us some bearings around that? What are the costs for something like that for say a facility?
Look, you're talking somewhere between $2,500 to $15,000.
Wow, depending on the size and scale.
100%, yeah.
Right.
And also, whereas your premise indirect or directly, like there's different variations, and I don't mean to be divisive, but it's different, and it also comes down to the amount of people that are in it, that can be in it, the intensity of the deep clean as well.
Right.
So there's a variety of different factors.
Okay, so these specialised cleaning companies and these cleaning regimes, they will quote you and they'll give you a sense depending on the context, the level of exposure, but you could be up for it's thousands of dollars. It's
100%.
It's not a coming in for the day and it's a few $100.
Yeah. Look, they're trained. They're in hazmats and everything. They're carrying specialised equipment. The chemicals alone inside that is unbelievably expensive.
Right.
So, they need to do things right. They need to be precise and slow, and they want to make sure, with respect to them, that you can open again.
So do the health authority, or the authority that's closed you under the regulation, do they then come back and do an inspection? Is that what you've heard?
They're working with the cleaning company,
right,
that's doing the deep clean. So yes, they're in continuous communication, and not just the health, but other authorities too. You know, the council in your area, and this will be different for different council areas, right?
Yes.
The regulatory services within that council in that area may have further restrictions or criteria that they have to meet as well. So that's why I keep going back to Service New South Wales, and in your local area, you need to go to the council.
Yeah.
You know?
So be on the front foot, be proactive, very much to engage with them.
100%, 100%.
Okay. Dave asks, my restaurant was hit hard during the initial lockdown. We started to get back to normal, but the recent outbreaks in a suburb that he's in have been hit again. I'm thinking of walking away from my business. What advice can you give with me exiting my business?
Okay. Now, sorry, Matt, firstly. Need to look at it from a number of different factors. One is your financial position, your actual liabilities, mortgages, leases, a whole variety of different avenues. And everybody is different. So you need to go to your accountant and get some servicing advice. You also need to understand it from your team members. What are you actually, what are your responsibilities to your team? Be it financial, but also from a mental health point of view. How can you help them as well as helping yourself? Because that'll come back and haunt you later if you've treated them poorly. It's never a good thing to sleep at night. You know, you want to sleep at night. And then if it is too much, it is too much.
And there are turnaround consultants and people that can help with, you know, what I call a graceful exit. There's nothing to be, you know, scoffed at with someone doing a proper assessment and getting out of a situation without any impact on their personal assets, and to do so, you know, in a way that gives them a better exit. So probably recognise it and then get the help and support.
Absolutely. And look, you know, the one thing that is why I'm in tourism and why I'm in hospitality is friendships. You have fantastic, your neighbours, and they could be the local publican that you might be in a pub game, or restaurateur, or family of baristas, or whatever it is. But we all look after, we might be competitors, but we all look after each other. And you know, we always give each other a shoulder, and we share. And if you need to share your problem, don't be afraid of it. Share it, you know.
We're all experiencing it at the same time.
Absolutely, you know.
In the same way.
And sometimes you may not be in as bad a position as you think you're in. You know, you might be seeing a ghost that's not really there. You know, so it's important to go through that ghost for a second and challenge the ghost. And your friends can do that without actually they realising it.
So networks are important. And that's a good thing about this program that we're part of, Business Connect. You can actually go somewhere and get up to 60 hours of support just with someone working with you through the issues. So important.
And you know, two things I want to bring up. So believe it or not, your local doctor, right, at this time is paid to have a chat with you. Have a chat with them. You know, just because you have a financial stress, you know, they might help you look at it differently.
Take a bit of a burden off someone.
Absolutely. You know, and look, most of the time, it is never as bad as you think it is. You know, God bless your emotions, they run riot. You know, pull them in check and get others to help you do that.
And get help. Still some wonderful questions coming through, but I do want us to get also to the next question, which is what we spoke about in regard to business continuity. You know, you can have a plan for that, and then we can start to talk about profitability, but you can get some of the settings right, and some of the things we began to speak about there is getting, you were talking about, well, you know, be forward thinking about contacting your landlord. Look at your mortgage position or your loan position or your capital debt. Think about conversations with particular people. Think about your balance sheet. What can you do? So what sorts of things have you seen, and what sorts of things are you doing? Yeah,
so, you know, I think when a few months ago, I talked about, imagine dropping your revenue 30% right now. Well, that's what you need to be thinking about. You know, in the Shire of Newcastle, in the last 2 weeks, there's been about between 40 and a 60% drop on revenues compared to what there were 2 weeks ago. And why is that? Because, one, yes, we had a case, and there's a perception that it isn't safe, but we haven't had a case since. And what does it actually mean? Well, it means that you need to preempt what could happen. And thankfully, months ago, we put our minds to having plans about, well, if this happened, what would you do? If this happened, what would you do? So that you recalibrate your business continuously. It's not a set and forget. Now, that also means that if you've got a mortgage, that you're talking to your financial institution continuously. And you pay a bit more, pay a bit less, depending on where you're at in that journey at the time. And it's the same with the landlord. Like, at the end of the day, the landlord's in this with you. Like, you're actually in partnership. You're in a marriage, right? And you need to be transparent with him or her, just like they need to be transparent with you. So we all want to get back to full rents. We all want to be thriving. In some sectors, in some localities, it's going to take longer than others. And we actually need to realise that, both sets. So, but we also need to know where break point is for both of us. So we need to assess that.
So perhaps get your position, have that difficult conversation and look at where each of you are at and where you're willing to go.
Absolutely. That's with your landlord and your bank. So suddenly you've got a fixed position. You know your financial position. Then after that, it's about managing your team, managing your supplies or cost of goods, but equally so, managing what you're charging. Now, everybody knows, sensible people know that everybody has incurred extra costs. And so therefore, a few things will happen. One is you'll reduce your menu size. So you're carrying less. Be more efficient with your ordering and more efficient with your ingredients, regardless what those ingredients are, by the way. It also means that you can and may have the ability to nuance your pricing up as well as not discounting. I'm not, with respect, nowadays...
Not discounting.
No. Try and stay away from value add, yes, but don't discount. And then, once you have that, monitor it continuously. Because what I talked about earlier about your fixed costs, they'll be moving, just like your other costs will be moving. So you need to come back, re-establish, figure out where it is, but also figure out the sentiment of an area. So what are the media doing in an area? Are they driving a negativity? Are they driving positivity? Because that will affect people's general confidence on the street. And you need to react to that and be aware of that.
You made a good observation when we spoke yesterday, and you've referred to it earlier today, about that phenomena of people that, despite risk, will want a guaranteed experience. And it's almost a customer segment, isn't it? This group of people that will pay as long as you can guarantee that product. So you need to present that to that customer segment, that group in the marketplace.
So like it comes down to different businesses within the visitor economy, right? But I know there is, for example, transport operators that can take up to 6 people, but they're actually saying, no, we're taking 2 people, but charging for 6 people. They're creating a narrative and articulating in such a way that, hang on a second, you're absolutely safe if you do this rather than this. Now, that obviously has got a higher profitability. Yes, there's some higher cost, but you're making more money. But you're articulating what you're doing differently. And it's the same with houses, and the same with types of accommodation. And the same as actually with experiences. I'm seeing some fantastic things around wineries and distilleries and around activities and attractions that are actually bringing those attractions to the home as well, and sometimes personally and sometimes digitally, that are just thinking and creating new avenues of how they're generating new types of revenue and becoming known for it.
Okay.
Really interesting stuff.
There's a lot around. Now, the other thing that I heard when I've been out and about speaking to businesses is the tremendous goodwill that I'm hearing from suppliers to other businesses. They want them to survive. So there's a lot of generosity around debt and credit periods. Are you finding that as well?
Yes. Trust. It's trust. And I suppose you need to look at it in 2 ways. One, there's a lot of people that have been in business for quite a long time. And yes, there are suppliers, but they're actually our friends. Over decades, they become great friends. And we're going to trust each other. They're going to trust me with their goods, and they're going to trust me that I'm going to pay them. And I will. But I also want to draw attention that we need to think about. You know, I talked earlier about the businesses that won't be there tomorrow. But not to be insensitive, but there will be businesses that will take their place. Now, the suppliers need to gauge those people, and they need to figure out, hang on, should I give her or him some credit? Now, each supplier is different, but can I just suggest, give them a break, let them have a crack as best they can. 7 out of 10, thank God, will survive for at least 50 weeks. And then you can gauge yourself, but let them have a crack, because we need to build the pie. We need to build the market. We need to build self-confidence, and we need to build general confidence. So it's up to us, all of us.
We're all connected.
We are.
Okay, some more questions. Brian asks, I've been reading a lot about how hotels and tourism in general have to take this time to adapt through innovation and the use of tech, but where do I start? I'm working towards a contactless experience, but unsure where to start after that. What are you finding in their tech and innovation?
Look, you know, you go back to the QR code for the sign-in. That happened in weeks. You know, so and we all got on board. Now, depending on what segment you're in, what I mean, what business you're in the visitor economy. For example, if you're in accommodation, first thing I'll say to you, whoever's your property management software provider, give them a call.
Okay.
Start there.
They're already into this.
Because they have, chances are, they have applications through AI that's already connected to them. That could come down to keyless entry, that could come down to guest journey experience within the property that the guest is already at, that is contactless. So your compendiums are gone, and that allows upselling in different ways of narration around trails and activities and other restaurants and bars and pubs in a locality. So you can easily do that if you've got a property management system that has capability. And the only way to find out is call them.
Good suggestion.
Now, the next one is if you're, for example, in the cafe and bar world, your point of sale stuff, same thing. So it doesn't matter which system you have, but a lot of them, again, have either inbuilt applications or APIs with a lot of other suppliers or third parties that can bring additional service and delivery, as well as upselling or bringing others into a marketplace, or you fall into a marketplace. So start with, you know, basically, I look at things of what is the thing that connects our team and our customers. It's usually some piece of software that we actually overlook every day because it's part of our blood, it's part of our veins, but we actually forget that we actually have the veins. So, and all I'd just say is put another organ onto that vein. You know, it's already there.
Indeed. Okay, we've got a little bit of time left, and there's a few more questions before we wrap. But Sandra asks, is there going to be support by the government to get more rapid testing on check-in for every guest? Have you seen that sort of technology from overseas or in Australia?
Yeah, look, in one of the businesses I have, we're looking at both devices that can, from cameras, infrared, can heat signatures, as well as putting beams on foreheads so that you can test for, like I said, heat or symptoms. It'll become more widely available in the commercial sphere. I'm not sure if government or regulation will impose it because there is a lot of risk to that from a liability sense of legal. But, you know, I think over the next sort of 50 to 100 weeks, we'll see more of that. And you'll see it, for example, in entry to shopping centres, and you'll see it in entry to train stations and bus stations, and you'll see councils impose it on streets and where there's high activity.
So there's likely to be more automation.
Absolutely, 100% there will be, and connected, you know. The one thing I must admit, you know, that gives me great confidence is Health New South Wales, the tracers, they're on it. You know, it is extraordinary, the speed on when they can find and track. And I know they're going after many different data points, and it's because of 4 to 5 years ago, the infrastructure they've put in. And, you know, and also, thanks be to God, we live in the world of, rightly or wrongly, NBN. Imagine 10 years ago if we didn't have NBN and analog. Holy God, the country would be shut. We wouldn't be working from home and doing all of these sort of things. So it's only just the next advancement, really, to be honest.
Okay, a couple more questions and then we'll wrap for today, Will. Sean asks, there's been a shift in budget to luxury accommodation as a result of perception of value and trust in cleanliness. Has the market behaviour changed in this area, in the luxury sector? Have you seen anything there?
Okay, so when travel in New South Wales, when travel restrictions lifted on June 1, there was a burst in leisure activity. And not just in New South Wales, but along Australia generally. And where it went was, it went initially to the perceived affluent, regional, experienced leisure areas. Byron, Southern Highlands, Blue Mountains, Port Stephens, Hunter Valley, etc. Noosa. Now, they were the upper end of the market, and what happened then is from within those geographies, the mid-market filled. However, it didn't have as strong an impact as, let's say, in the less desirable leisure areas of New South Wales. Now, then you'd have to ask yourself, okay, what happened to luxury products that were in urbanised areas? They didn't have any effect. In fact, they're still tanking. Now, what happened in bird flu and in SARS, same thing happened. Now, same thing happened, it took to the home rather than the hotel, right? So that they had greater benefit in the home or the holiday home because there was the perception of safety and the reality of safety because of space. The second thing is you're in control of the entire environment, not others.
Yes.
Now, what happened there though, that lived for a while. So demand went for about 13 to 18 weeks and then it pulled. Same thing happened in Australia.
Okay.
Now, what is going to happen next is we're all looking and seeing right now is what that segment will do in the next 25 weeks. What will affect it? For example, we're in reporting season at the moment for the stock exchange.
Yes.
So listed companies, what that will affect on confidence and on actually the exchange itself, but on the valuation of companies that are related to that.
Yes.
And you see Glencore, they've taken a 2-week shutdown. Well, we know the reason why, but there's an opportunity there too.
Yes.
There'll be, a whole lot of people looking for 2 weeks to get away before they're back to work again.
Yes.
But where will they go? It's interesting, right? So yes, there's actually the luxury market, but they have actually higher costs than ever before. But also, you can nuance certain types of accommodation, nuance it, create a narrative or a sales opportunity from a caravan park to a recreational vehicle to a backpacker done differently. It's how you want it to be viewed.
Yeah, I agree, and I've experienced that again, just going around various parts, how a facility demonstrates that it's got certain areas closed down or that it's got lower levels of concentration, and it communicates that.
That's right.
About its rooms and its spacing and its safety.
Yeah. And look, so there's always the opposite side of the lens too, right? So where we that are in the visitor economy want people to come, there's large parts of our community that don't want anybody to come. So how do we do that? How do we actually live together? Because we need to live together. At the end of the day, what we want to do is live in a healthy environment that's safe, that we can actually live. So we can create some revenue and live. And there will be times in different parts of New South Wales that different individuals in leadership, be it a councillor, a politician, a business leader, or a sports leader, or whatever, will take a view and tell the world not to come. How do we cope with that?
Yes.
And how do we actually, and it's up to each of us to actually take that on and say, we need to live together. How do we actually bring a sense of fairness and a sense of being healthy to a community that everybody can still survive? And it's also, when you look at that, you need to think about, we go back to what we were, earlier question around some people don't want to housekeep any longer. So it's how we need to look at now too is job seeker and things of that nature.
Yes.
I understand and I totally understand why it's there. And in some ways I totally agree with it. And in some ways I totally disagree with it. I totally agree with it because the money that's spent from that cohort of people is in our economy. God bless it. But equally so, right now, the job seeker payment is equivalent to almost the full-time wage of a barista. So you've got competing Do you want
which
new,
is
new staff or not?
Quite specific to this industry, given the demographic and age.
Absolutely.
So it's that thing that we spoke about selling on the longer term of this. Do you want to have a job in this industry going forward? Absolutely. Which is quite different, and that's the thing about JobKeeper, job seeker dynamic, and the money, the income that they're receiving. You have to really dig a bit deeper into your business to get them back and to engage them.
That's right, and I think, to be honest, you need to figure out, firstly, what roles do you want, and not just for today but for tomorrow, and how you articulate that to a person on job seeker. Because at the end of the day, yes, they might have some money today, but they'll be like caged animals in time, because they won't be able to actually express themselves and find mental fulfillment. It's how we attract them in, and it's a balancing act. And fair play to the government, but also it needs to be on the employer to actually try and attract them in.
Okay. There's so much more to speak about and not enough time to do it. I'm just going to wrap up for today, and to do that I'd like to very much thank you, Will, again for your time. Very kind of you to be here today for us to look at how we adapt for COVID in the hotel industry. If anyone would like to contact Will, please contact us and we can pass your 100%. Details on to Will. We'd like to thank again the Business Connect program, which is a dedicated program funded by the New South Wales Government and delivered through a network of independent service providers to help you start or grow your small business. If you want a business advisory session subsidised by the New South Wales Government Business Connect program, call 1300 134 359 or email connect@treasury.nsw.gov.au. That leads me to once again thank the amazing team at Fordtronics who provide the webcast expertise and technology behind this webcast and have been our AV partners for a whole range of projects. We strongly endorse them. If you'd like to talk to them about implementing webcasting as part of your business continuity, then reach out to us. Thank you, Will, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you.